Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Conversations with Coaches podcast. I'm your host, Kevin, and today I feel like I say this a lot, but it keeps being true. I am already delighted to have met Marc Longwith. We've been chatting for a few minutes. I say a few minutes, already at least 10 minutes, and I can already tell I would love to have a drink with this gentleman. I'd love to have some coffee. I'd love to spend some time. He's such a natural with his coaching that you'll see it here in a moment, but I'm delighted to introduce Marc to you. Marc is a heart-centered entrepreneur, co-founder of Energetic Alignment Academy, an MMA fighter, and a sommelier, which I don't think we'll talk too much about, but that needs to be in there. I'm so curious about that, but it's just lovely. He has worked with professional athletes, Michelin star chefs, nine-figure CEOs, on and on it goes. In 2019, he left the food and beverage world to pursue his passion for coaching. Now he's coaching hundreds of clients and creating real impact in the world. Marc, like I said, I'm delighted to meet you. I'm excited to talk to you more. I'm already excited to talk to you again and just see what you're putting out into the world. And selfishly, I'm just pleased to meet you. So, Marc, welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate for having me. That's quite the follow-up there. Thank you so much. It's awesome.
I try we kind of talked about a little bit before I hit record. I like to be genuine. And like when I'm impressed with somebody, more and more as I move through life, there's less of a reason for me to hide that light. If I like somebody, I'm going to tell them I like them. And I'm going to tell them why I like them, even if I've only known them for 12 minutes and counting as I peep up at the Zoom clock.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, vulnerable transparency. We all need a little bit more of that, right? In this world.
That's the stuff. That's the good stuff right there. Let's go back, not all the way back, not to the beginning, not to I was born and blah, 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 blah. But let's go back a little bit to how you got your start as a coach in particular, when you discovered that you wanted to become a coach, when maybe somebody helped you realize you already sort of were a coach and you decided to make that the way you wanted to have your impact in the world, how you developed your superpowers as a coach. Let's go back to that beginning and how did you get your start and how did that start evolve into who you are and what you're doing today?
Yeah, sure. So really where it started was in the martial arts world. I started training when I was 12. I wound up working out at a school and took over the school. I started when I was 14, took it over when I was 24 as a black belt. And during that time, I just coached a lot of fighters, was always teaching. So that's where it got cultivated from, I would say, the superpowers. I didn't even know it was being built. I mean, I was 14, 15, 16 years old, teaching people and training people. But what happened was, fast forward into my 30s, and I was basically running a brew pub that we had built for business partners in downtown Las Vegas. It was super successful, amazing brew pub in downtown. But I just got to that point where I had a lot of drive and my partners were just kind of still stuck and just like, hey, let's be complacent. Let's just go with the flow. And I got bored and I got a little frustrated, to be honest with you. So a friend of mine was like, you ever think about hiring a coach? And I was like, no, never anything like that. So I wound up hiring a friend of theirs, this gentleman named Wei Hung out of Redondo Beach. Pretty phenomenal coach. He coached Meg Ryan, a couple other celebrities. What was important though, is I got with him and I'm like, listen, I really want to build a different business, go in a different direction. And he's like, well, did you ever think of coaching? And this was like within the first week he had met me. And I was like, no, why? He's like, well, because you're kind of natural at it. And I'm like, well, what do you mean I'm natural at it? And he's like, well, what'd you do this week? I'm like, well, I did help a friend with a workout plan. I did file an LLC for another buddy, a trademark for another person. And I thought about it, I'm like, wow, like I'm continuously just giving back. And he's like, you can monetize that and build a life around it. So that's really how it started.
Yeah, I love it. This is always fascinating to me because there's so many common threads in the origin story of the coaches I get to talk to that are still nevertheless so very unique. Like your journey is very unique, and yet you identified that core principle, something that was just basically naturally occurring. It was just what's the there's a phrase or a quote, I think it might be a Bible verse or something like that, but out of the overflow of the heart the mouth speaks. It's something that I always think about when it comes to how I show up in the world and how I show up for people, not just with my words but with my actions and with my very being and where I choose to put myself and how I choose to represent myself in the world and who I choose to serve. And I love that your coaching realization, your dawning moment was just, oh yeah, I kind of am this. It's like someone gave you the word and that unlocked your journey.
100%. Yeah, it was quite the expansive moment. When I look at coaches and I talk to our clients, I always say like we're expanders. So we're
Mm,
expanders for you, and there's people that are expanders for me, and they show you possibility. And I just never even thought about that world. As many self-help books as I'd read and things I'd done, I never really thought like, oh, coaching was really a thing. And to see somebody do that, and then this person, while coaching me, was kind of mentoring me along. And
mm.
believe it or not, what was crazy was I was able to create a lucrative in the black business within like 3 months that I had never done in my life before. So it was really wild. It was an interesting shift. So
That's lovely. And I often find that when I'm moving on the right path, life in whatever form that might take tends to give you little indicators that yeah, you're doing the right thing, and you'll get like these moments of success or these confirmations or like a nod from the right person at the right moment, and having that kind of like immediate success. For me, I mean, obviously we're kind of writing our own story, so I want to lend too much credence to it, but I just find that there's whenever I'm on the right path, whenever I've made a right decision for how to go forward, there tends to be those early rewards that are sort of confirmatory, where it's like, yep, you're on the right journey for right now, correct. And I just, not to speak too highly of it, but like that kind of success that early, you're on the right path.
yeah, I think about the universe, right? I really do believe it guides us, whatever your spiritual connection
Yeah.
is. And I always think of what you just said. I was thinking of Matthew McConaughey and his book Green Lights, like all these green lights,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that's what I was thinking. Like, yeah, that's just the affirmation, the validation that hey, I'm going in the right direction. This is it. So that's
That's
awesome.
exactly it. I did not expect to love that book as much as I did. Actually, I didn't really come into it with expectations. I just saw Matthew McConaughey, and I'd like kind of grown to appreciate him just as a human being in the world, the way he was speaking and representing himself. And like I would watch some of his lectures at the university he teaches at sometimes. He got a little professorship, and I was like, this guy kind of knows what he's talking about. And then I started reading Greenlights, and I was like, okay, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And I was so
Yeah.
impressed with how simple he was able to make such a big topic really sound, and how translatable it was.
Yeah, he's pretty amazing. I think for me, I mean, just I know it sounds funny and it's very cliche, but it's just his voice, right? Like we all know he's
Mm-hmm.
got this cool voice, and then he narrates the book because I listened to it, and it just sunk in because it wasn't just his voice, but it's his passion. It's the way he articulates, and I think that that's actually a maybe very natural, but it's still a very beautiful skill. It's awesome when you can get people to, like you just said, something very
Yeah.
intelligent, right? When you can take something complex and you
Mm-hmm.
can make it simple, that's intelligence. A lot of people are trying to take simple things and make them complex to seem smart, and he's doing the opposite, and I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that to me too is the mark of a great intelligence, and also someone who cares about that intelligence getting out there. It's like you take the complex and make it simple. You don't erase the complexity of it. You just make it more accessible. You basically you build bridges. I
Absolutely.
love actually thinking about this now. This does bring up an interesting coaching topic about having natural abilities and refining your tool set. Because I mean, obviously, he's been a working actor for decades and decades and decades, and he has worked consciously with intention to refine his already excellent skills that may have come from how, developed in his youth when he was a child. And you can see the evidence of that work through the ease with which he expresses himself, I think. And granted, he has been known for a very long time for a sort of natural ease, a sort of easy charisma. And yet you see that continue to develop throughout his acting career, and now throughout just his life, as he's very available and very vulnerable and very connect withable through the way that he presents himself in the world. And I think that's a good lesson for coaches and people who are receiving coaching, is that you can, you're not just working to solve problems. You're also looking to refine your strengths and continue to develop your tools to help you impact the world, which just gets me really excited to think about.
Yeah, 100%. I was thinking, I wrote down just a quick note, was like, it reminds me of, there's a gentleman, and I forget his name, you might know. He basically, I think it was Austrian, and he created two chess world champions that are females, his daughters. And long story short, he wanted to prove to the world that, talent is a thing, but you can build anything. And so basically he found a wife who was a teacher. Hey, you want to
Mm.
do this project with me? She's like, yeah, they have these beautiful daughters, and they turned them both into like grandmaster world chess masters. And I thought that was amazing because it does prove, that like we have to hone these skills. I've always been a fighter, and I look at people like Mike Tyson. I mean, Mike Tyson should have never been a champion, right? I mean, yeah, he had major punching power, but the guy's like 6 inches shorter than everybody he fought. He wasn't the biggest guy in the world. Like it's just his job was 10 times harder, but he just worked 10 times harder. So it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty amazing.
That's a great example. I love this line of conversation, because we can just continue to just go down and like think about people and think about analogies and structures and ideas. But I don't want to skimp on talking about you and your coaching and like who you are today and how you're coaching. And I like to ask this kind of as a two-parter because I feel like it kind of gets to the heart of what you're doing as a coach. Who do you coach and how do you coach them? The who being, whether you have particular industries you focus on or people at a particular stage of their personal or professional development that you tend to have a lot of your client base with. And then the how being primarily one-to-one, group coaching or masterminds, keynote speaking, presentations of various kinds, books, courses, all of the above. So who do you coach primarily and how do you coach them these days?
Yeah, so my main business is called Energetic Alignment Academy, and my business partner and I, what we've done is we specifically focus on healers and coaches. And when I say healers, I'm saying anybody who has a spiritual modality. Like that could be something like Reiki, yoga, shamanic healing, energy work. It could be, we have tarot card practitioners, astrologers, human design. It's this really eclectic place, right? And so this is just my personal, I believe that these people have the medicine to heal the world. They have no capacity to do business on the generalized platform, right? They're afraid to charge. So really what we're showing them is possibility, right? I'll be honest, like from a straight monetary business perspective, it'd be easier to coach realtors or hedge fund managers or whatever, but I don't think they're going to change the internal genuine core of the world. And then these people do. And then how we do that is pretty cool because it's a hybrid. And you don't usually get these kind of high touch hybrids. So what we have is there's a weekly coaching call every single week that's in a group, right? Sometimes we have guest speakers, sometimes we have a specific teaching, but then every month they get 2 one-on-one coaching calls with an impact coach. My business partner, G, and I, we're in some of those calls, not all of them. There's a bunch of coaches. And then what's really cool is the community. Like we have a Discord community. And I think like, I tell people like, I remember the movie, The Founder, he's like, you're not in the burger business, Mr. Croc, you're in the real estate business. And I'm like, I'm not in the coaching business. I'm in the community business because our community is so cohesive and so loving and so kind that it's mind blowing to me what people can create because they actually don't feel like they're on an island anymore. They're around like-minded people who not only have this, let's call it woo-woo side, but they actually have some drive and want to create a business because I feel like you kind of get one or the other in the world, So that's just a little breakdown of what we do.
I really love that approach to sort of cultivating and nurturing the ambitious business side of world changers because you're right. It takes a truly special human being to be able to have both and to do both within just yourself. It's just so hard to contain that level of multitudes, which is why community is the key to unlocking having that kind of impact because you really do need people around you who share an ambition. Maybe you want to serve a different niche or you're going forward in a different way, but you're all serving the same united goal and you have similar ambitions and you need some legitimate help and some guidance to taking care of that side of things because that's not, nor do you want it to be your expertise. You know where you want to go. You know the work you want to do. You want to have an X business. You want to have a coaching business, a community business. You want to be working on coaching the community. You want to be working on healing and development. You want someone else to help you with the business side, someone who's more suited for it, someone who understands it, and someone who can really help you grow your impact in the first part. And the business side, I feel like that's one of the greatest services that coaching can provide is just that let's guide you to doing this in the way that you want to do it. Let's remove these obstacles that might otherwise trip you up, get in your way, or stymie you before you even properly get to begin. And let's see where your ambition, our goals will take us. And let's do it together. And I find I'm always I start to romanticize it when I talk about it because I'm so in love with the process. It's basically just a way of creating and building human relationships in a way that not just affects the people who are connected, but just radiates outward and affects the world around them in greater and greater ways. It's so powerful and so impactful, I think.
I agree completely. I mean, one of our greatest sayings is we say proximity is power, and it's mind blowing what you can do with that proximity. Like it's just so uplifting. And you said something really interesting to me is that authenticity piece is, I think, what separates, our business from the typical coaching marketing world is, it's like, follow this template or this guru did this. And I'm like, no, like if you do that, you're going to fail. It's the exact opposite. I do not want you to be me. Like your people, they want you. They want you. Like if you're quirky, they want quirky. If you're bougie, then you're going to get the bougie peeps. If you're maybe this demographic or maybe this religion, like I really tell people, like just play into who you are because those people will show up and those are the people you want to be around. Like that's the type of people you want in your ecosystem. You don't want to pretend to be somebody else. So I'm really grateful you point out that authenticity piece, because that's what we need more of in the coaching industry.
And I think it's so important to lay it out the way you laid it out too, because the word authenticity gets thrown around so much and a little bit too freely sometimes to where it starts to lose its true meaning. And I think that's it right there. I don't want you to become me, because you're not going to be successful trying to become successful the way I became successful. I'm here to help you find the way that you're going to be successful, that you're going to become not somebody else, but more yourself. And in a way that's going to allow you to reach more of the people that you can have the most influence and impact on more often in even deeper ways than you already are. And that's it. That is authenticity. That is showing up for people. That is why we're here doing what we're doing. It's just, I think some more light can get shown on the true nature of authenticity with the way that word gets thrown around sometimes.
Yeah, we are just firm believers in authenticity, and we actually bring up integrity a lot, because integrity is true authenticity. Like if you're honoring your word to yourself, like it's so important. And speaking of authenticity, like you said something important about just like where you're at. And it's like, there's levels, right? Like what works for you in this specific space with authentic to you is going to change over 2 years. You're going to become a different person. And then your authenticity will change too, like how you show up me. And it's just interesting to see like, hey, what works, let's just even call it numbers. What works 0 to half a million doesn't work 1 million to 5. And you have to become a different person. And I think that's the part that's really difficult for people, is your ability to become a different human being all the time. And I tell people the only difference that I can really point out in myself is my ability to change and go with the flow and bounce back immediately is with just zero, rebound time. I mean, sometimes when I was younger, I might have went down a rabbit hole and not bounced back for a year, right? Now it's like 10 minutes in certain areas. So I think that's the growth piece. Yeah. But authenticity is just so important.
I couldn't agree more. The way you described that, in my head, I have a little analogy that popped up of like a rubber band having that elasticity. And I think about old rubber bands or rubber bands that have been properly cared for, been allowed to dry out, and you start to stretch them out and you can see them begin to come apart immediately. And before you know it, they've snapped before they've even come close to being useful. Whereas, a well-constructed rubber band, which granted, we take rubber bands for granted, they just exist, but like a really good one, when you're trying to really bind some things together, you're like, you kind of stretch it out and you're like, ooh, it's got some good elasticity. It's got good bounce back. I feel like this is actually really going to be able to help me do what I'm trying to do. Is it going to actually be able to hold this thing in place rather than split in two the moment I put any pressure on it? And that kind of elasticity, I feel like it's a good thing to be ambitious to have in yourself as a human being.
I couldn't agree more. Actually, if you do all the studies, they say resiliency is the number one indicator of a millionaire or a billionaire. And when you think about that, it's that ability to build that resiliency. Like we always say, we build people who build better people. And when I tell somebody, I say, listen, the only difference between where you are in this very moment and wherever you think you want to be is your ability to handle what's going to happen to you in the next 5 years to get there. And I think it was Winston Churchill, I can't quote it perfectly, but he said, the ability to go from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. I mean, to me, I can't picture a better entrepreneurial quote in my life, because we all know how hard this can be sometimes.
And that enthusiasm, it's going to take some hits. It's going to take some real hits just in the natural course of moving through your life in the world, and really just letting yourself be aware of that, and then cultivating that awareness and committing to working with people to help you out. Like I get a personal trainer to help build my body up. It's the same principle. And I know a lot of coaches will use this analogy to help people, understand why they have value. It's like you have a gym membership to kind of keep your physical body, in a certain kind of shape, or maybe you have certain goals you want to achieve. And so you're training and you have people helping you train. Professional athletes have a collection of coaches and trainers, each serving different purposes, because they have a goal in mind and they know that to get there, they need a lot of help and guidance to develop the skills and develop the abilities and capacities that they need. Just as important for the way we develop ourselves, and quite frankly, welcomes just as much attention, just as much investment. Another word that I like to associate with coaching, it is an investment. You're not just hobby shopping or buying books to put on your shelf and never read, or read them and never put them into practice. It's an investment. And I think it's such a, I don't know. I love the way that it's just gaining momentum and gaining in power and gaining in acceptance, that we need to commit as many resources to our personal and professional developments in the way that we want to be human beings in the world as we do to, improving our mile time or improving our deadlift PR, or whatever it happens to be. I love shining a light on the importance of it. And I'm so glad, I'm so pleased to hear you, the way you represent what you're doing and how you're going about doing it. It's, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, you're very clearly the real deal. Very clearly you're, and you said it early, and I'll say it again, who you are and who you are as a coach and as a professional, as a businessman, comes naturally out of your deepest beliefs and values and passions. And that comes through in everything that you're saying. I'm looking up at the Zoom clock, and it's been 30 minutes since we started talking, and I want to talk to you for hours more. It's so fantastic. There was one other thing I wanted to say, and I'm being a bad host because I'm talking more than my guest. But you really sparked something in me that I think about a lot, and that's what works to get you here won't necessarily be what gets you there to the next thing. And I often find myself thinking about a multi-stage rocket. Back when we were launching Apollo craft into space, and a multi-stage rocket, it has these things that they're very designed is to propel you up to a certain level, and then at the right moment fall away and completely disappear. It has served its purpose and it's faded. And there's other rockets, other stages that help you continue to propel you to where you're trying to go. And then you've got, your capsules up top that are designed to navigate the areas of space that you're now in. And it's just this consideration of needing different levels of strength, different kinds of fuel, different levels of propulsion to reach certain places, and making sure that you don't carry that extra weight with you when it starts to hold you back. And making sure that you structure things in such a way that you're not carrying, quite frankly, dead weight into the next phase of your personal development, your professional development, your business, your life, your relationships, all of the above. And I love thinking about that, thinking about whether or not I've got any dead weight still attached to my rocket, whether I'm expending my fuel wisely, whether I'm actually on a trajectory to make it, to break gravity and make it into orbit, or if I'm setting myself up to fall back to Earth. And thinking about that, it really helps me to keep my little rocket ship on a steady course.
Yeah, I think that's that huge growth factor you're talking about that we're all kind of, I wouldn't say addicted to, but we're really into. And I just wrote a note that I always tell people, not only what got you here won't get you there, it might hold you back, right? Like you just said. And I tell people when I get with a client, I don't really do one-on-ones anymore, once in a great while if someone's really inspiring. But it's more about what you let go of and remove from your life than anything you'll add to it. Because if you can continue to remove all the things that are inhibitors, anything that's energetically sucking the life out of you, anything that's just not aligned with your ecosystem, everything will just naturally fall into place. Like you don't even have to try to do, I need to do these things. No, you don't. Just remove all the junk and those things will just drop in. And I really love that. I think that's what it's about, removing,
It really is. And it takes a lot to trust it. Because it's like there are voices in your head, there are things inside you that are there's a tilt to your stomach as you're standing at the precipice, and it's not gonna feel right at first, but once you realize that is the way things work, that the right stuff will come in and fill that space, you get a little taste of it. You trust it a little bit. You have somebody help you trust it, somebody guide you to a place where you can trust it. You get a little taste of how that works, and you'll never look back.
It's like a superpower, right? Like you really are operating in a different way than 90% of society. And you're just like saying, oh, I'm in alignment. That's why we call the Business Energetic Alignment Academy. I mean, you are technically in a line and everything starts to flow for you, and working with you. And I think I would not want to live any other way. We've lived the other way, and this is way easier, more fun, and more enjoyable.
Yep. I tried it the other way. I like this way. And I'm looking forward to the next version of the way as I discover it moving forward and not standing still.
Absolutely. We just keep paying attention to those green lights.
Yeah. Before I very reluctantly let you go, very reluctantly, where can people just find out more about you, who you are, what you're doing in the world, what you're doing through the academy, all of the above? And then also, what's the best way for people to connect with you if they want to start a conversation or start a relationship?
Yeah, I think the best way is simply on Instagram. It's just Marc_Anthony_Longwith, and that's MARC. And then we have Energetic Alignment Academy. That's that business. I have Evolved Entrepreneur, but that's going to be under my Coaching Within website. But if they just jump on Marc Anthony Longwith, it's all in there. I put it in a milkshake, so it's easy. Anyone can DM me on Instagram. I'm not so popular yet that I'm like, oh, I can't talk to people. I hope I never get like that, to be honest with you. So I hope I can just always connect with humans. It's just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's such a tricky balance, isn't it? is scaling your impact and scaling like the way that you move in the world, and then still making sure that you retain the connection, because that connection is just, that's where the life is. It's the work of a lifetime, and I'm glad you're doing it.
Yep, it 100% is. And I just wanted to say too, we're also doing a workshop on May 8th. So if anybody wants to check that out, it's at the Energetic Alignment Academy website, and pretty much we're going to do 3 days of, talking about energetic alignment, talking about our money stories, talking about our niches, building irresistible offers, and just helping, new coaches build something, and it's all free. So that's something that we always offer.
Excellent. Well, yeah, normally I'm looking at my current, I sort of not really complained about my backlog of episodes because I recorded so many. I think I'm going to go bump this up so that we can make sure to get this episode out before that May 8th, event. Wow. So we can make sure to do a little extra promotion. I feel like we'll get this out first week of May. How's that sound? So when you're listening to this, that offer will be live. Go to the website, links. The deal on a podcast, links and everything you need to know in the show notes. Marc, thank you. Thank you for being here. I was grateful to get to share some time with you. And thank you for being out there in the world, doing what you're doing with passion and commitment and impact. It's encouraging in a broad way, and it's encouraging specifically to me. And so I'm a little bit overflowing with gratitude. So I can't wait to sit and think and read and journal about the things we talked about today. I'm grateful to know you, and I'm excited to know you more. I'm excited to invite you back on and have you back on in a few months and talk again, because this has been a delight.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. I'm honored, and it's nice to add another amazing human being to my proximity, because that's what we need more of.
I couldn't agree more. And to the audience out there, I hope you feel the same way. If you feel a fraction of what I feel right now, you know what to do next. Find out more about Marc, connect with him on IG, send him a DM and thank him for being in the world, and ask him about what he's doing, what he's up to. You won't be sorry. And we'll get a chance to talk to you here very soon.